The collapse of communism, the breakup of the Soviet Union, has brought independence and a measure of freedom to more than a dozen new states. The most powerful is Ukraine, a nation of 52 million people, the world's third largest nuclear power, and now free after 300 years of outside rule. But Ukraine is hardly a unified entity. The south, Crimea, wants independence. The eastern part feels the pull to Russia. And the west, where we go tonight, is on a binge of ethnic nationalism. Ukraine for Ukrainians can have a frightening ring to those not ethnically correct, especially in a nation that barely acknowledges its part in Hitler's final solution. In the Flower Garden Square in the city of Lvov, just about every day of the week the sounds of freedom can be heard. Men and women giving voice to their particular view of how the new independent Ukraine should be governed. They disagree about plenty, but do have two things in common. Their old enemy, Russian communism, and their old enemy, the Jews.
We Ukrainians do not have to rely on America and kikes.
Yakov Blaik left the United States 5 years ago to take over as chief rabbi for the Ukraine.
There is obviously a lot of hatred in these people that are expounding these things and saying, obviously if someone, screams, let's drown the Russians in Jewish blood, there isn't much love lost there.
The Jews of Lvov have reason to be concerned. These are the kinds of scenes they've been seeing lately. Ukrainian ultra-nationalist parties asserting themselves now that Soviet communism is gone. Their chants and banners mimic another more fearsome time. The place they're marching in was once called Adolf Hitler Square. The same square greeted Hitler's troops 50 years ago as liberators. Thousands of Ukrainians joined the SS and marched off to fight for Nazism. In the process, they helped round up Lvov's Jews, helped march more than 140,000 of them to extinction. Virtually every Jew in Lvov. Among those who watched in horror was a young man who was to become the world's #1 Nazi hunter, Simon Wiesenthal. Now living in Vienna, he remembers that even before the Germans arrived, Ukrainian police went on a 3-day killing spree.
And in these 3 days, in Lvov alone, between 5,000 and 6,000 Jews was killed.
I get the impression from people that the actions of the Ukrainians, if anything, were worse than the Germans.
About the civilians, I cannot say this. About the Ukrainian police, yes.
Many of the Ukrainian men of Lvov who marched off as members of the SS never returned, killed fighting for Hitler. But last summer, a good number of the survivors, veterans of the SS Galicia Division, did return for a reunion laid on by the Lvov City Council. Ukrainian SS veterans now living in Canada, the United States, and Ukraine. Nowhere, certainly not in Germany, are the SS so openly celebrated. And for this reunion, Cardinal Lubachinsky, head of the Ukrainian Catholic Church, gave his blessing, just as a predecessor did to the SS more than 50 years ago. Did you not hold a ceremony here for the Galician SS?
Yes.
For the men who fought with the Germans?
Yes.
And you held a mass for these people?
No, see, we didn't fight anybody here. We fought against the Russians in Austria and Yugoslavia. And we were under Germans. We had to do whatever they wanted to. We couldn't do anything but we want ourselves, really.
But even before the Germans entered Lvov,
Yes.
the Ukrainian militia, the police, killed 3,000 people in 2 days here.
It is not true.
It's horribly true to Simon Wiesenthal. Like thousands of Lvov Jews, his mother was led to her death by the Ukrainian police. These are remnants of a film the Germans made of Ukrainian brutality. The German High Command described the Ukrainian behavior as praiseworthy.
My wife's mother was shot to death because she could not go so fast.
She couldn't keep up with the rest of the prisoners.
Yes. She was shot to death by a Ukrainian policeman because she could not walk fast.
It was the Lvov experience that compelled Wiesenthal to seek out the guilty, to bring justice.
Because I feel guilty that I survived. Why you and why not the others? For people, they was better than you, they was more intelligent than you, they could give the society more than you are doing. And this complex was so that I must speak in the name of these people. They cannot speak more because they was murdered.
The names Auschwitz and Belsen and Buchenwald may be better known, but this place, the Yanovska Road camp in the city of Lvov, barely a mile from the Opera House, has its share of infamy. 200,000 Jews from the city and surrounding communities were killed here. Today it serves as a prison for common criminals. Nothing marks what happened here. There is a stone next door to the camp. This was a place called the Sands, a killing ground where 200,000 bodies were dumped into a ravine. It's been filled in and is now used as a school for training police dogs. In western Ukraine, at least, Hitler's dream had been realized. It was Judenfrei, free of Jews. In the 50 years since, Jews have drifted in from other parts of the old Soviet Union, about 7,000 now in Lvov. For some Ukrainians, that's 7,000 too many.
Yeah, well, that's not a secret. They're saying that. They want the Jews out. They want the Jews out. They want the Russians out. And they want everybody else out that's not an ethnic Ukrainian.
The group marching is Una Unso, a political party whose motto is force and order. 3 of its members, including the man shouting orders, were elected members of Ukraine's national parliament. A sister party, the Social Nationalists, calls for the need to liquidate certain people. Most of the parties have their own newspapers. The most popular and the only daily is called For a Free Ukraine. It blames the Jews for Ukraine's current economic condition. The editor-in-chief says his paper is not anti-Semitic, but he also says,
Ukrainian villagers who represent the spirit of the Ukraine have long considered Jews to be exploiters. And this is reflected in jokes and anecdotes. In terms of the Soviet Union, which is abbreviated SSSR, that stands for 3 kikes and 1 Russian.
It's an article that came out just 2 weeks ago where they tried to prove that Lenin was really Jewish and his real name was really Chaim Goldman. But there was an article by Sherbatyuk calling for mass murder and extermination of all Jews or Russians who don't leave the country by a certain time. People here have been trained to believe the press. So they'll believe that Lenin was Jewish, and they'll believe that anything else that they're told because they read it and they saw it in print. So they are frightening.
the message is clear to Lvov's Jews. They're leaving as quickly as they can get exit permits. There have been incidents. Rabbi Blake's apartment was firebombed.
There have been a number of physical attacks in a small town. 2 elderly Jews were attacked at knife point and stabbed because they are Jews and because of the myth that all Jews must have money hidden in their homes. The same thing was in western Ukraine, the Carpathian region. These are very, very frightening facts because it's, again, that stereotype that we mentioned before. When that leads someone to really to stab an older couple and leave them helpless and, they left them for dead, that means that we have serious problems.
As troubling to Jews as nasty incidents and verbal abuse are the heroes and symbols chosen by this new nation. Street names have been changed. There is now a Petlura street. To Ukrainians, Simon Petlura was a great general. But to Jews, he's the man who slaughtered 60,000 Jews in 1919. Roman Shukeyevich is also memorialized. He was deputy commander of SS Division Nightingale. And then there's Stefan Bandera. To Ukrainians, Bandera is the father of the modern state. Peace Street in Lvov has been renamed Bandera Street. He's considered a great patriot, even though the Jews remember him as the leader of a notorious army of murderers.
Now, when someone puts up as his hero someone who we consider a murderer, and you respect him, even though we understand you're not respecting him because he was a murderer, however, that does send shivers down, down your spine.
The Western Ukraine is fertile ground for hatred. Independence only underlined its backwardness. Uneducated peasants, deeply superstitious, in possession of this bizarre anomaly. Nuclear weapons capable of mass destruction thousands of miles away. The Soviet legacy. Western Ukraine also has a long, dark history of blaming its poverty, its troubles, on others.
Kikes have better chances here than even the original population.
They're Ukrainians.
Ніж українці, так?
Yes. This newspaper considers the government's chief task should be the well-being of the Ukrainian population first and foremost.
The Cardinal's deputy, Monsignor Dochko, denies traditional anti-Semitism in Ukraine, but in his next breath, he tries to explain it.
The Jews in our history predominantly identified themselves with the ruling class. For example, in the city of Lviv itself, before 1939, 1/3 of the population was Jewish, and practically the entire businesses were in their hands. And in the eyes of the peasants, to some extent, the Jew was looked upon as an exploiter of this population. Nevertheless, Ukraine as a political force never had the means or the strength, if I could put it brutally, to combat or to even to persecute the Jews. What happened during World War II is a sad history, and there were also Ukrainians who were guards or perhaps or persecuted the Jews, but identifying the Ukrainians as a strictly anti-Semitic society is an injustice.
The church and government of Ukraine have tried to ease people's fears, suggesting that things are not as serious as they might appear. That Ukrainians, despite the allegations, are not genetically anti-Semitic. But to a Jew living here, or to one who only remembers the place with horror, such statements are little comfort among the flickering torches of Lvov.
Not to believe.
What's your reaction to this?
They have not changed.